Have you ever wondered what happened to the last German soldiers still fighting after World War II officially ended? What became of those isolated warriors in the hidden corners of a devastated Europe where the echoes of war refused to be silenced? In the shadows of a war-weary world, where the ink had barely dried on Germany's surrender, there remained pockets of defiance. Isolated German units, cut off from the news of their nation's fall, continued their grim struggle. These forgotten soldiers, scattered across Europe's remote frontiers, clung to their posts in a twilight of disbelief and duty. Today on Epic History Facts, we uncover the surprising final skirmishes of World War II. We'll delve into the stories of these last stand battles, exploring the reasons behind their continued resistance and the eerie silence that followed their futile defiance. Join us as we step into the past to understand the chaos and confusion that marked the very end of the world's most devastating conflict. On May 8, 1945, a weary world witnessed the twilight of a monstrous chapter. The signing of Germany's unconditional surrender was more than a cessation of hostilities. It was the final breath of a regime that had brought unparalleled devastation. The grand halls of Reims and later Berlin echoed with the solemnity of defeat as Allied and German representatives signed the documents that would herald peace and a desperate hope for reconstruction. Yet even as the ink dried on this momentous accord, the message of surrender spread like a fractured whisper through the remnants of the German military. The tangled web of war had frayed communication lines, leaving many isolated units in the dark. In the quiet forests and distant mountains, German soldiers remained entrenched in their duty, unaware that the conflict which had consumed their lives was over. The radios crackled with static, orders were lost in transit, and the shadow of disbelief hung heavy over those who had not yet received the final word. Grasping the broader context of these last stand battles requires an understanding of this chaotic landscape. The war had not ended in a neat, singular moment, but dissipated unevenly, its echoes lingering in the stubborn resistance of those left behind. These isolated skirmishes were not merely the actions of forgotten soldiers. They were the manifestations of a fragmented command structure and a psychological struggle to accept the end. To see these encounters clearly is to peer into the heart of a war's final throes, where the lines between combat and surrender blurred, and the quiet conclusion was anything but silent. In the remote and dense forests of Latvia, there lay a region known as the Courland Pocket. Here, a significant contingent of German forces found themselves ensnared, surrounded by the relentless advance of the Soviet Red Army. This pocket of resistance, stretching along the coast of the Baltic Sea, became a symbol of both the tenacity and the tragic futility of war. As the tides of battle turned overwhelmingly in favor of the Allies, these German troops were cut off from reinforcements and supplies. Yet they held their ground with a dogged determination that defied the inevitability of their situation. Even after the official surrender of Germany on May 8, 1945, the soldiers in the Courland Pocket continued to fight. It wasn't until May 23, 1945, that these beleaguered troops finally laid down their arms. For these men, the war had become a haunting echo, each day a grim testament to their unyielding spirit and the desperation of their predicament. Isolated from the main body of the Wehrmacht and starved of communication, their defiance was both an act of loyalty and a refusal to accept the collapse of their world. The soldiers in the Courland Pocket endured in a hopeless situation, surrounded on all sides, and faced with an enemy that was both relentless and vastly superior in numbers. Their stand was not just a battle against the Soviet forces, but a fight against the erosion of their own morale and hope. They were warriors suspended in time, fighting a war that had officially ended, but persisted in the rugged and unforgiving landscape of Latvia. Their story is one of resilience and tragedy, a stark reminder of the fragmented and chaotic end of World War II, where not all battles ceased with the signing of peace. Amid the dying embers of the Third Reich, a shadowy legend took root: the Alpine Fortress. It was said that in the impenetrable Alps, Nazi diehards would make their final stand, transforming the rugged mountains into an invincible bastion. This myth, known as the Alpine Festung, painted a dramatic picture of a last redoubt where Hitler's most loyal followers would retreat, fortify, and continue the fight indefinitely. The fortress, allegedly stocked with weapons, supplies, and fanatical troops, loomed large in the imaginations of both German and Allied strategists. The allure of the Alpine Fortress was potent, influencing military tactics and strategic decisions on both sides. For the Germans, it offered a sliver of hope, a place where their cause might endure beyond the fall of Berlin. For the Allies, it represented a potential prolongation of the conflict, a hardened stronghold that could resist their advance and drain their resources. This fear of a prolonged guerrilla war in the mountains prompted the Allies to divert significant forces to encircle and neutralize the supposed fortress, even as they pressed on towards the heart of Germany. However, the reality was far less dramatic than the myth. As Allied forces moved into the Alps, they encountered sporadic resistance, but nothing that matched the fearsome vision of the Alpine Fortress. The actual skirmishes that took place were the result of isolated German units, cut off and desperate, rather than a coordinated defensive effort. These last stands were driven more by the chaos of collapsing command structures and the scattered remnants of the Wehrmacht, rather than a grand strategic plan. The myth of the Alpine Fortress served as a psychological weapon, reflecting the desperation and disarray of the final days of Nazi Germany. In truth, the mountains did not hide a bastion of resistance, but rather the fragmented end of a shattered regime, clinging to the last vestiges of defiance amidst the Alpine peaks. Off the coast of France, nestled in the English Channel, lie the Channel Islands: Guernsey, Jersey, Alderney, Sark, and Herm. These idyllic islands bore the weight of German occupation from June 30th, 1940, until the war's end. As the only British soil to be occupied by German forces during World War II, the Channel Islands became a strategic outpost for the Nazi regime, heavily fortified with bunkers, gun emplacements, and miles of tunnels. When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the isolated German garrisons on the Channel Islands were left in a peculiar limbo. Cut off from mainland communication and entrenched in their routines, they remained unaware of their nation's capitulation. It wasn't until May 9th that word began to trickle in, but it would take until May 25th, 1945, for the full reality to settle in and for the formal surrender process to begin. For the German troops stationed on these islands, the days following the surrender were fraught with confusion and tension. The soldiers continued their daily patrols, maintenance of defenses, and other routines as if the war had not ended. The isolated garrisons faced significant challenges during this period. Supplies dwindled, morale plummeted, and the looming threat of Allied retribution cast a long shadow. The surrender process was delicate and complex. Negotiations had to be conducted carefully to avoid unnecessary bloodshed and ensure the safety of both the occupying forces and the local population. British forces, aware of the fortified nature of the islands, approached with caution. Eventually, the German commanders, realizing the futility of further resistance, agreed to lay down their arms. The official surrender took place on May 9th, marking Liberation Day, a day still celebrated annually on the islands. The final handover on May 25th brought an end to one of the last active outposts of Nazi Germany, closing a chapter of isolation and uncertainty. The phenomenon of soldiers continuing to fight after their country has surrendered is not unique to the German holdouts of World War II. Across the vast expanse of the Pacific, Japanese soldiers, deeply ingrained with a code of honor and unwavering loyalty, continued their guerrilla warfare long after Japan's official surrender on August 15, 1945. These soldiers, known as Holdouts, believed it dishonorable to surrender and remained steadfast in their refusal to accept defeat. One of the most famous Japanese holdouts was Hiroo Onoda, an intelligence officer who hid in the Philippine jungles for nearly 30 years, unaware or unwilling to believe that the war had ended. Onoda, who continued his mission until 1974, symbolizes the extreme dedication and indoctrination that characterized many Japanese soldiers. His story, and those of other holdouts like Shoichi Yokoi, who was found in Guam in 1972, reflect a mindset similar to that of the isolated German units who kept fighting in the final days of World War II. Both the Japanese holdouts and the German remnants shared a deep-seated belief in their cause and an ingrained military discipline that resisted the idea of surrender. For the Germans, it was a combination of fragmented communication and a refusal to accept the collapse of the Third Reich. For the Japanese, it was a matter of cultural honor and the Bushido Code, which emphasized loyalty and perseverance unto death. The parallels between these groups highlight a broader human tendency towards resilience and denial in the face of overwhelming odds. The stories of these soldiers, clinging to their last orders and isolated from the broader world, underscore the complexities of war's end. They remind us of the lingering shadows that conflict casts, even after the battles have ceased and peace has ostensibly been declared. In the rugged, snow-capped mountains of Norway, the war's end came with a final, defiant stand. German forces, under the command of General Franz Böhme, continued their resistance until May 9, 1945, a day after Germany's official surrender. This last gasp of defiance was set against the backdrop of Norway's inhospitable terrain, an environment that had both shielded and challenged the occupiers throughout the war. The fjords and forests of Norway provided natural fortifications for the German troops, allowing them to hold out longer than in more accessible regions. The harsh landscape, however, also posed significant logistical challenges. Supplies were hard to come by, and the constant threat of ambush by Norwegian resistance fighters kept the German forces in a perpetual state of alert. These conditions contributed to the prolonged skirmishes, as isolated pockets of German troops struggled to maintain their hold against the relentless push of Allied forces and local partisans. The role of the Norwegian resistance fighters, known as the Milorg, was crucial in the final days of the conflict. These brave men and women, who had waged a guerrilla war against the occupiers for years, intensified their efforts as the end of the war drew near. They executed sabotage missions, disrupted supply lines, and provided invaluable intelligence to the advancing Allies. Their persistent harassment and strategic strikes significantly weakened the German resolve and hastened their surrender. As the news of Germany's capitulation spread, the Norwegian resistance played a pivotal role in ensuring that the remaining German troops laid down their arms. Their actions not only expedited the end of the occupation, but also symbolized the resilience and spirit of the Norwegian people. The final surrender of German forces in Norway was not just a military victory, but a testament to the enduring strength and determination of a nation that had fought tirelessly for its freedom. As the grand theater of World War II drew to a close, Europe was still dotted with pockets of fierce resistance, where the cacophony of battle continued to echo. In various remote corners, German units, isolated by broken lines of communication or clinging to an unwavering belief in their cause, fought on despite the official end of the war. These final skirmishes, occurring in the twilight of conflict, were marked by both valor and tragedy, as soldiers on both sides faced the stark reality of war's lingering shadows. In the mountains of Austria, small German detachments, unaware of the surrender, continued to engage Allied forces. The terrain, with its treacherous passes and hidden valleys, provided natural fortresses where these units held out. In the dense forests of Czechoslovakia, similar scenes unfolded. Cut off from central command, German soldiers dug in, refusing to accept the collapse of their once mighty war machine. Each clash was a microcosm of the larger war, showcasing individual acts of bravery and the heartbreaking futility of continued resistance. Among these last stands, stories of personal heroism and profound loss emerged. In the Alpine village of Itter, a remarkable battle took place where American troops, former French prisoners, and anti-Nazi German soldiers joined forces to defend the castle against a desperate SS assault. This unique coalition of fighters, united by circumstance, epitomized the complex allegiances and unexpected alliances that defined the war's final days. In Yugoslavia, German and local partisan forces clashed in brutal encounters even after the official surrender. In some instances, German commanders, driven by a sense of duty and honor, chose to fight to the bitter end rather than surrender. These skirmishes, often involving fierce close-quarters combat, underscored the chaos and fragmented nature of war's end. These final battles were not just about military strategy, but also about the human spirit's resilience and the refusal to succumb to despair. They highlighted the tragedies of war, lives lost in the closing moments, families left in mourning, and the indelible scars etched into the landscapes of Europe. As the guns finally fell silent, the stories of these last skirmishes became a testament to the enduring complexities and the profound human cost of World War II. The persistence of these isolated skirmishes cast a long, dark shadow over the local populations, who found themselves caught in the crossfire. As the rest of Europe began to breathe the tentative sigh of peace, these communities continued to endure the terrors of warfare. The sounds of gunfire and the presence of soldiers, friend and foe alike, turned tranquil villages into battlegrounds, disrupting the lives of civilians who had already endured years of hardship and fear. In the Alpine regions of Austria and the forests of Czechoslovakia, villagers found themselves unexpectedly thrust into the role of wartime witnesses. Stories from these areas tell of families huddling in cellars, their hearts pounding with each nearby explosion, and of brave souls who ventured out to offer aid to wounded soldiers, regardless of their uniform. The battle at Castle Itter is one such example, where local residents not only witnessed but participated in the defense of the castle, a rare instance of direct civilian involvement in combat. In Yugoslavia, the impact on local populations was particularly severe. The fierce clashes between German troops and partisans often took place in or near civilian areas, leading to casualties and destruction. Villagers faced the constant threat of reprisals from both sides, living in a state of perpetual uncertainty. These final battles brought a brutal reminder that, for many, the end of the war did not come with the signing of treaties, but with the slow, painful cessation of violence on their doorsteps. The legacy of these encounters lingered long after the last shots were fired. In post-war Europe, the scars left by these final skirmishes were both physical and psychological. Villages rebuilt from rubble, and communities mourned the lost and the traumatized. The stories of these last stands became part of the collective memory, a testament to the resilience of civilians and the cruel capriciousness of war. Monuments and memorials dotted the landscapes, ensuring that the sacrifices and struggles of those final days would not be forgotten, serving as a somber reminder of the cost of conflict and the enduring hope for peace. As we draw our exploration of these unexpected final stands to a close, we reflect on the myriad of stories that paint a vivid picture of World War II's chaotic end. We've journeyed through the isolated resistance of German forces in the Courland Pocket, the myth of the Alpine Fortress, the stubborn holdouts in the Channel Islands, and the relentless skirmishes in Norway and beyond. Each of these episodes underscores the complexity and fragmented reality of the war's final days, where official surrenders didn't always translate to immediate peace. At the heart of these tales is the human element, the courage and confusion that marked the twilight of the conflict. Soldiers, bound by duty and discipline, often fought on amidst a whirlwind of misinformation and isolation. Civilians, caught in the midst of these last battles, displayed resilience and fortitude, navigating the precarious balance between survival and hope. These stories are a testament to the indomitable human spirit, showcasing both the harrowing and the heroic facets of war. We invite you, our viewers, to ponder these poignant narratives and share your thoughts in the comments. Which story surprised you the most? Was it the prolonged resistance in the remote forests of Latvia, or the eerie quiet of the Channel Islands post-surrender? Your insights and reflections help us delve deeper into these historical events, enriching our collective understanding. If you found this journey through history compelling, please subscribe to Epic History Facts for more profound explorations of our past. Click the bell icon to ensure you never miss an episode, and join us next time as we continue to uncover the hidden stories that shaped our world. Thank you for watching.